Hello, grade 5, 6, 7 students. Welcome to today's Knowledge World Academy online lesson in integrated science. So today we're doing a summary, a topic summary. We finished the past few weeks we've been doing plants and animals. So we are done with that topic. So today we're just doing a summary where we just go through the important parts of the topic. And then at the end, I have selected a few questions from past papers. Some questions are concerning the same topic, but some I just randomly chose them or added them so that we can just answer a few past paper questions. All right, so let's get into it. So we'll start with the flower, pollination, and fertilization. We did this, so we're just running through the basics. We're summarizing the topic. All right. So flowers are made of different parts. The parts include the stalk, the sepals, the petals, the stamen. So the stamen is the male part of the flower, and it consists of the filament and the anthers. Are we clear? Then the pistil consists of the stigma, the style, and the ovary. So the pistil is the female part of the flower. So we have the stamen, which is the male part of the flower, and then the pistil, which is the female part of the flower. Then we have these other parts known as the stalk, the sepals, the petals, and the stamens. So the stalk, this is a structure which attaches the flower to the stem. Are we clear? So it is the part which attaches the flower to the stem. Then the sepals they really don't have a full function when the flower is fully developed. These are useful when the flower is just germinating. I'm sure you've seen that green cover which of course surrounds the flower before it even becomes a fully grown flower. Those are the sepals. So those are just helpful during the germination process or as the flower develops into a fully grown flower. Then the petals, these are the brightly colored parts of the flower. We've talked about the stamen. All right. Then pollination. Pollination, we say that it is a transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma on the same flower or to a different flower. So that is cross-pollination, where the pollen grains move from one flower to another flower on a different plant or the same plant. Then that is cross-pollination. But if they are transferred from one anther to the stigma on the same flower, then that is self-pollination. Are we clear? So cross from the anther to the stigma on a different flower, then self from the anther to the stigma on the same flower. That is self-pollination. Are we clear? All right. Then agents of pollination, here we can talk of so the agents of pollination, we're talking about factors which help the process of pollination. So here we have wind. So wind can help in the process of pollination, as the pollen grains can be moved from one anther to the stigma by wind. Birds also help in the process of pollination, as they are collecting nectar from the flowers. They end up having big pollen grains on their beaks, and as they fly to another flower, they will transfer those pollen grains to the next flower. Then we have insects. Insects also help in the same way. The pollen grains will attach themselves to the body of the insects, and as the insect moves from one flower to another, they will transfer the pollen grains. Are we clear? Mammals, in the same way. In fertilization, pollen grains grow a tube through the style to the ovary, the pollen grain. So the style. So during fertilization, this is the ovary, this is the style. So during fertilization, the pollen grains will develop a tube in the style, where the pollen grain will travel from the stigma to the ovary, where it fuses with the ovule to form the zygote. Let me erase that. All right, so here I just have a simple diagram. We had this diagram when we were looking when we just introduced this topic. So now here I just have some parts labeled. So we have parts labeled from 1 to 5. So let's just try to identify these parts. So part 1 is the style. Part 1 is the style. Part 1 is the style. Part 2, that is the stigma. Part 3, that is the anther. Then part 4, that is the filament. Then part 5, that is the ovar. Are we clear? All right, let's proceed. Then fruits and seeds. So here, seed dispersal. So seed dispersal is a spreading of seeds from the parent plant. So it is a spreading of seeds from the parent plant. So instead of all the seeds developing into new plants next to the parent plant, they will be moved from the parent plant to other places. This is known as seed dispersal, moving of seeds. So don't get it confused. Don't combine these. Don't think of pollination and seed dispersal as one and the same thing. No, they sound similar, but they are not. The same. They are similar, but they are not the same. Seed dispersal involves transferring, spreading of seeds, fully developed seeds. Then pollination, transfer of pollen grains. Are we clear? So seed dispersal, spreading of seeds from the parent plant. This helps plants to occupy new areas, prevents competition of nutrients. It also prevents extinction of a certain plant species. So we said it helps plants occupy new areas. So as these seeds are transferred from the parent plant to other places, they are occupying that new area, yeah? And it also reduces competition with the parent plant because the seeds will start competing for nutrients from the parent plant, and that also reduces, it prevents extinction of a certain plant species there. So since we've said the seeds are being moved from the parent plant, and we've said that it prevents extinction, so in a certain area, I gave an example on this, if I can remember correct. In a certain area, if that plant goes extinct, you find that the areas where these seeds were dispersed, where these seeds were spread, that type of plant will continue growing there, yeah? It will not be fully extinct. So extinction means something stops existing, like the dinosaurs. The emergence of seed dispersal. What are some of the factors that help in the process of seed dispersal? May include water, animals, and explosive. Explosive, this one is a self method. It does not depend on any other factor. All right, plant propagation. We said plant propagation, new plants growing from seeds, buds, or plant cuttings. So new plants growing from seeds, buds, or plant cuttings. Seed propagation involves growing new plants from good quality seeds. Row planting, so if you're using seeds, you have to make sure that you look for the best quality, the good quality seeds. I did mention on this, on the importance, why this is important, to make sure that you identify good quality seeds. Row planting, so it prevents, maybe when you're looking at drought, you have to look for seeds such that when they develop into a fully grown plant, it does not fully depend on water. It can survive in deserts or dry areas. Maybe you want a plant which is resistant to diseases. You look for the seeds which are capable of resisting diseases. Then we have row planting. So row planting, seeds are planted in single or double rows. So this one is neat, yeah? So the seeds are planted in single or double rows. So this is where you make those beds where now you plant your seeds. Then broadcasting, seeds are just scattered without any order across the field. So you just get your seeds and start scattering them across the field. Then you start watering them. So this one is not so neat because they'll just grow without any kind of order. All right. vegetative propagation involves growing new plants from plant parts. Growing new plants from part plants. This is where we talked of the buds developing into a new plant on its own. All right. Then we have artificial vegetative propagation. So methods are plant cutting, grafting. So grafting, we said you get the stem from one plant, then join it with a stem of another plant. That's grafting. Then plant cutting, I said if you want to plant a certain kind of tree or plant in your environment or your home, when you want to cut it, make sure that you cut it below the nodes, because the nodes will develop into roots, and the roots will make sure that the plant or that part of the plant gets water and nutrients. Yeah. All right. So now let's get into some questions that I sampled from the past papers. Our first question, though it is labeled as question 12, says study the diagram of the flower below. Study the diagram of the flower below. Which of the parts numbered is female? Which of the numbered parts is female? So let's identify all the parts first, then we'll try to establish which numbered part can be considered as a female part. So we have part 1. What is part 1? Part 1, that is the filament. Yeah. Part 1 is the filament. Part 2, that is the style. Part 2 is the style. Then part 3 is the anther. Then part 4, those are the petals. So now here, this question is saying which of the parts numbered is female. When we talked of the female parts, we said that it consists of the stigma, the style, and the ovary. But here they're just asking you to identify one part which can be considered to be part of the female part. You understand? So don't get confused and say, but the female part consists of 3 parts. But here they are the numbers, they have just put 1, 2, 3, 4. They haven't paired them, maybe even put them in sets of 3. So here they're just asking you to identify a certain part which can be considered to be part of the female plant, the female part of the flower. So we said part 1 is the filament. Part 2 is the style. There's the style. We've said that the pistil, which is the female, has the style, the stigma, and the ovary. So we've said part 2 is the style. Is the style part of the parts that make up the female part? Yes, it is. Yeah. So part 2 can be considered to be a female part. So on this one, the answer is B. All right, let's proceed. 29 says the method of dispersal for the seed shown in the diagram is. So what method of seed dispersal is demonstrated in the diagram? So when you look at the structure of this diagram, you have to identify some certain key factors or structures. So when you look at this diagram, or this seed which is shown here in the diagram, it has hooks. It has hooks here. It has hooks. And what method of seed dispersal, or what agent of seed dispersal can be helpful when it comes to seeds which have hooks? So there we have animals, we have water, explosion, and wind. So if it has hooks, it can be dispersed by animals. So these hooks will cling on to the fur of the animal. If it is a bird, the feathers. Yeah. So meaning animal is our answer there. So animal is our answer. Animal is our answer there. All right. We proceed. 35 says the diagram. So this one, I've just added it. It is on the water cycle, so I've just added it. So for the sake of revision. All right. So the question says the diagram below shows parts of the rain cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What process takes place at place 3? So we have the numbered parts. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then they're asking you to identify the process which is taking place at stage 3 or place 3. So let's first identify the process that is taking place. So stage 1 there is just water there. So stage 1 is just water in the river there. So there's not much of a process taking place there. It's just water. Stage 1 is just water. Then stage 2, the water, the liquid is turning into a gas. What process is that? Where liquid turns into a gas? We said it is evaporation. Yeah. All right. Then evaporation. Then that evaporation has to condense, where now the gas changes from gas to liquid. That is what is known as rain now. So the formation of rain here. So now yes, let's proceed. So we've said the formation of rain. The gas which has been formed here through the process of evaporation has to be turned into a liquid through the process of condensation. So it is evaporation, it goes there as a gas, then it has to come down as liquid. So meaning the gas has to turn into a liquid, and the process that is involved in the conversion of gas to liquid, it is condensation. So meaning stage 3, the answer is condensation. Okay, we proceed. Then what process is taking place at 4? That is precipitation, yeah? So at part 4, you have precipitation. All right, let's proceed. So this question which says, study the following diagram. Study the following diagram. So we have a diagram there where an insect. So before you start answering questions, make sure you analyze the diagram that you've been given. Okay? So you have an insect here. This insect flies to this flower. Then from that flower, it goes to this other flower. Then they ask you, the process X is, what process is X? So on the options we have cross-pollination, fertilization, germination, and self-pollination. So when we just started doing a revision, I did mention about cross and self-pollination. Yeah? So you can see this insect, this is pollination. So the factor here, it is animals, the insect, it is helping in the process of pollination. And I said if the pollen grains are transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower, then that type of pollination is known as cross-pollination. So we can see this insect is flying from one flower to the other flower. Then this type of pollination is cross-pollination. So meaning A is our answer. We proceed. This question says, study the diagram below carefully. Study the diagram. I've just added this question for the sake of knowledge. It says, study the diagram below carefully. I'm sure we've all seen water tanks. We find that they are placed on a high platform, and those stands, they just don't do that for decoration. There's a reason why they do that, why they put tanks on those high stands. So now that's the question here. Why is the tank placed higher than the tap? Why do they do that? I'm sure most of you have tanks at your homes, and I believe that they are on top of something, standing on top of something, mainly stands. So now why do they do that? That's not for design. Sorry, it's not for decoration. There is a purpose, a scientific reason why they always do that. So that's the question here. Why is the tank placed higher than the tap? A, to reduce the water pressure. No. So this is how it is, you guys. Let me explain. For liquids, for liquids, the pressure increases when you raise the height. You understand? The pressure will increase if you raise the height. Again, pressure is higher at the bottom. Pressure is higher at the bottom. So let me put it like this. You have this container. When you make 3 holes here, the first hole and the second hole, you find that the water which will be coming out from the bottom hole will reach this side. Then the one on top here will just be below, like that. I'm sure you've seen this somewhere. So that's how pressure works. If it is on the flat surface, the pressure at the bottom is higher than the pressure on top. Then what happens when you raise this object? When you raise this object, of course it's still the same thing, but the pressure will increase. Are we clear? So the pressure will increase. So meaning this tap, the pressure that the water is coming down with is very high compared to a tank which has just been placed like that. Why? Because now here we're taking into consideration that now this is being pulled by gravity. So it is coming with a high pressure. Therefore, you find that this tank, which has been placed on a higher surface, the water that will be going through these pipes is even able to reach the inside of the, maybe even you can even use the shower. Why? Because the water is coming down with high pressure compared to a tank that has just been put down. Like those, the ones you see mostly in Nigerian movies, they just put them down. So those are not, they don't produce a lot of pressure. Why? Because the tank and the tap, they are on the same level. Are we clear? All right, so now let's look at the options here. A says to reduce the water pressure. No, I've said the water pressure won't reduce. B says to increase the water pressure. C, to make sure the water is kept clean. No, not quite. So that it can be seen by everyone. Which one do you think is the correct one here? So it says, why is the tank placed higher than the tap? So we've said to reduce pressure. No, to reduce pressure is not the reason. So when you do this, you are increasing pressure. So meaning the correct answer here is B. So the correct answer here is B. Alright, so this is it. Thank you very much for watching. So we're done with this topic. Next time we'll move on to a different topic. Thank you very much for watching.